All right, guys, I would say my excitement level for today is it's a solid 7.5 out of 10, not quite 10 out of 10. When we're working inside the house, then we'll be at a 10 out of 10 level. But right now with doing this dirt work, it's not the most exciting thing to do. But as those pesky union electricians say, it all starts in the dirt, which for a lot of new construction it does. So running conduits, running pipes underground, stubbing them up into the building and stuff, that's where a lot of the work starts. And so not for us, because obviously we've got a pretty well a fully built home now, but now we can run all of our utilities. So in the last video that I posted, which is another video, we go over basically how I did all the trenching, what is going in the trench, why it's gonna be going in there, some thoughts and some tips about planning and efficiency so that we only have to trench once, because it's not the most favorite thing to do. So now when I'm gonna be running these conduits and these pipes in the ground, we can start to kind of plan ahead and start to think, how do I want to kind of run these conduits and in what order? So we have a good opportunity now because I know my conduits going into the building. We're gonna have a 1-inch, a 2-inch, and a 1-inch conduit. So I know when I'm laying my conduits in the trench there, I'm gonna go 1-inch, 2-inch, 1-inch. So we're gonna follow that same pattern of how it's going in the building. And then the other one that we're gonna be running is gonna be the 2-inch PVC that's coming from the 28,000 gallon Aquamate water tank. But enough talk, guys. Let's see some actual action here, all right? So we're gonna start working, showing you how I do this kind of stuff. There is some strategy to actually running conduit. If you can kind of pre-plan and think in advance to how you're actually going to be pulling the wire through the conduit, you can lay them out with the belt ends going in the right direction. So we'll kind of go over that a little bit more in detail, but let's jump right into it. Some little tips for when you're laying out conduit like this. So if you're going to be doing a long wire pull, like what we're doing, so up from that panel down here, it's a pretty significant wire pull. So we want to think, how are we going to pull that wire? Now where that panel in the garage is, in an elevation sense, it's higher than where we are down here. So it makes sense, just logical sense, since wire has weight to it, and we can use gravity to our benefit, that we're gonna start our wire pull down there. So we'll start the wire going into the conduit at that other panel, and then we'll pull it all the way down here. So if we know the direction that we're gonna be pulling the wire, that means we can also lay our conduit in a way that's gonna make that wire pull easier. Now with conduit like this, it has what is called a belled end. So the belled end is really nice because if you're running a lot of conduit, you don't need couplings or anything like that. So I can basically just glue this piece into the next piece of conduit. But when you're doing a belled end like this and you have your next piece going in, you want the wire, or you want to be pulling the wire in essentially this direction here. So as the wire goes through this pipe, through the belled end, see how it's kind of got a bit of a curve to it, and it kind of sucks itself in. That's a nice smooth transition for that wire to go through the conduit. But if you're pulling your wire the opposite to this, then you're going to have kind of this sharp edge that your wire is going to have to pass through. So it's just gonna be a little bit easier if you push it this way. Now you could do it the other way, but I'm all about making things easy for myself, so we're gonna pull it that way. And probably what is even more important is that I'm gonna run a fish tape to get a pull line through. So if I've got all my belled ends going the same way, if I stick my fish tape in going this way through the conduits, then I'm not going to have my fish tape get caught on this piece of conduit. And it will get caught on it if you're going up against it, because it's just kind of the nature of how the fish tape will work its way through the conduit. It will get caught up on little things like this, and then you're like, what the heck is going on? So just keep in mind, if you're running underground electrical conduit like this, to keep all your belled ends going the same way. It'll make it much easier for you. So I've got our conduits run underground here, right to where we're making a 90-degree bend to go up into the mechanical room. So I pre-prepped basically the Nichi-Ha siding. So I know my 1-inch pipes are gonna go right through the building right here. So I've even got a hole pre-drilled, and there's a sleeve going through the building to the inside, so it's weather tight as well. And then I got one up there, and that's for the 2-inch main service. And from there, it'll go straight into the back of the panel. Now, a little tip that I learned when doing conduit runs like this is, instead of doing one long sweep 90, is to do 245s. So 245s will obviously give you 90, but it's just easier to do 245s for the wire to actually bend and to go around that. And we can do the same thing to bend the 90 going up the wall there, is to use 245s instead of a 90. And that'll just make it easier to pull the wire through. So now that we know the direction of our wire pull, all our bell ends are going in the right direction, is I'm gonna be down here and I'm gonna be using the pull string to pull the wire, and there'll be somebody feeding the wire through the conduit at the other end there. But I'm gonna be pulling pretty hard to get that wire to come all the way through that conduit. So any connection for this 2-inch pipe that's gonna be going up the building, I want this connection to the building to be extremely strong, because I'm gonna be reefing on this pull string to get the wire through, because it's a long wire run, it's gonna be heavy. So I gotta make sure my connection to the building is gonna be super solid. So this is where some forethought and some planning can really help you out. So the way that I positioned these conduits going up the wall here is that I position this 2-inch hole where it's gonna be going through the building, right centered between two 16-inch on center studs. So if I cut a piece of unistrut, say I cut it about 18 inches, and then I space my holes on the unistrut 16 inches on center apart, if I drill through that unistrut into the building and I go deep enough, I need at least a 3-inch screw, I will be going directly into the studs. So that's gonna be way more stronger and solid, rather than just going through the Nichi-Ha siding and then into the sheathing, because the sheathing is only 3/8 of an inch thick. But if I get a nice solid 3-inch screw, that means I'm gonna get probably around 1.5 inches of bite with the screw going into the stud. That's just gonna make it way more stronger, and I don't have to worry about ripping my conduit strut clamps off the wall, which we don't want to do. So you can kind of get an idea of how far in advance that I think about things like this. I mean, how long ago did we install this siding, right? It was probably 3 months ago, maybe something like that. But I already had it in my mind. I knew how I was going to run my conduit. I had a good game plan. So now we just gotta execute. So I hope you guys get a bit of an idea of how far in advance I think about things. There's so many things. Even when the HVAC contractors came here, they couldn't believe how many things I already had prepped and ready for them before they even showed up. Like, I just think in advance about what the different trades are gonna need, whether I'm doing it or somebody else is doing it. Thinking in advance, planning it out, and that just comes with experience, right? So if you don't have a lot of experience, it's hard to kind of plan things like this out, but it's just something that comes over time. But hopefully through these videos, you guys will have kind of some better awareness of how some of these things are done. All right, guys, you're not gonna be able to see this, but I set my laser right up on my, basically my pilot hole for the 2-inch that's going to be going into the building here. So this is what is called an LB. So we'll get this lined up with where it's going to be going into the building. And I just want to kind of get an idea of how tall the LB is, so that when I mount my strut, I'm not mounting my strut like right here. I can go down, say about 5 or 6 inches here, so that it's just not going to look stupid if the strut clamp is like right next to the LB. So we'll go down right to this, probably this panel right here, and that's where we're going to mount it. So I've got my laser mark, and what I did on the unistrut is I made a mark at 9 inches in. So that's the center of our strut. A little pro tip is when something's going to be visible, I only mark it with pencil so I can rub it off. Things that are not going to be exposed and you will not see, then I'd mark it with a marker. Let's just confirm that we're going to be going into a stud. 100% that is in a stud. Nice. Make sure we're nice and level. Levels are your friend. If you're going to put up anything, you might as well make it level. These are actually 4-inch screws. Perfect. So you can see our exterior hole, and then you can see that PVC sleeve that I put in there, which is, I flashed around it, so waterproofing is good, but we're through there. And same kind of dealio right down here. Easy peasy, guys. Alright guys, so on the bottom of the rigid there, we've got our threadless compression connector for rigid, and then we've got our female adapter screwed into it. So now I can transition to PVC and send it right down there. And then I cut the pipe long coming inside of here, and we want basically that edge there to line up with the back of our can. So we'll take a measurement from the wall to there and add on about 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch, because the can actually stands off from the wall a little bit. And then we'll make that cut and we'll get this back on and get it nice and tight where it needs to go, and then we're good for this. One thing that I need to do here on this rigid pipe is to insulate it from the ground. Now I don't really want to go into grounding and bonding electrical systems, but since this is considered a sub panel, I do not want another ground. I don't want that panel to be grounded here. This panel will actually be grounded up at the main panel where our main ground rods are in the ground. So we just use some pipe wrap here and wrap it around the pipe so that there's not going to be any direct connection to the actual ground with this pipe. Once we transition to PVC, obviously PVC is not a conductor of electricity, but this pipe here, we're going to have to wrap it up with some pipe wrap. Now, what does this resemble? Does this resemble the Falcon Heavy, or does it resemble a set of cock and balls? All right, guys, even though we got most of our stuff done, I still got some work left to do in the trench. So the 4-inch pipe that we're gonna be using for our downspouts, I can get all those underground and run over to where the tank is. But I'm going to put those at a different level from where the water pipes and our conduits are down below ground there. So we're gonna bring it up so that we're only going down about 16 to 18 inches underground. And then I've got another panel to mount. So this house, we're gonna have 2 electrical panels. And you might be thinking to yourself, you got that nice big beautiful one in there, why would you need another one? So something that is always a royal pain in the ass is trying to get electrical conduits or wires into a house after it's already been finished. So something that you could do is, we could use some of our existing strut here and get a conduit going into the back of the panel or something like that. That's one way of doing it. Now, I came up with a better idea rather than kind of messing up what I've already done here, and that is mounting an electrical panel to the outside of the house. What a concept, right? I've never seen that done on a residential home where they actually have a dedicated panel that is outside of the home, so it's got to be obviously weather rated, to run everything that's outside of the house. I've never seen that done before, but that's what we're going to be doing because it's my house, and guess what? I get to do whatever I want. But the nice benefit of that is that anything future that I do in the backyard, which I don't know exactly what is going to be going on, right? I don't know exactly all the electrical requirements and things that I'm going to need outside of the house. So if we mount a panel to the outside of the house, which we're going to do just on the back end of the mechanical room there, is that I can run all my conduits right into that panel, and then I know I got a 100 amp sub panel right there. So that's plenty of power to run most things, right? Awesome, guys. I appreciate your time that you take to follow along with these videos and everything that I'm doing. I hope that you gain something from it. I'm trying to drop some little nuggets of gold, some dimes, some really good information, so that if you're doing any construction projects, hopefully you can take some tips and make it more fun, more efficient, and do a better job. Awesome, guys. Thanks so much for watching. We'll catch you on the next video. Talk to you soon. Peace.